All right. Hello. Welcome everyone who is online right now watching this, and welcome to another Measure School live stream. Today we will talk about the cutting edge of analytics and the cutting edge of computing, I would say, with the newest advancement in AI. And we'll talk specifically about something called ChatGPT. First of all, I welcome everyone who is watching this live. We are live right now, so I have Andrew here as well and Brian already. If you guys can hear me, let me know. The music is from the software that we're using. I don't think there's an artist associated to it. Mike is also here. Welcome. And then Black Hat on YouTube. So this is great to see that a lot of people are interested in this little topic. Question first of all for you guys, did you try ChatGPT yet? I mean, it is the rage. Probably couldn't escape it if you're on Twitter or any of the social media. So let me know in the chat if you have tried it just yet. I kind of got a little bit addicted to it. Every 10 minutes really, I had a new use case and was thinking about something new. I have it on my phone as well. And anytime one of my family members has a question as well, I'm like, oh, I wonder what ChatGPT would say about this. So say about this, and I put it into the chat, and then I get like this answer. So there are more people joining. That's great. Eric, Tanner, great to see you. Brian already played with it. Andre hasn't stopped using it. Just a short test, says Mike, and Johan says curious and scared at the same time about this possibilities of ChatGPT. So let's start with the video, really, and we're going to do a little recording, and then we can cut it together. So in a second here, I will just have a little bit of silence, and then we'll get started. The robots are here to come for us. ChatGPT is all the rage, and we want to try it out as well here at Measure School. Welcome to another live stream that we are recording right now, and we will try out what this new AI technology, especially ChatGPT, can do for us as analysts, for people who work with data, for people who do tracking on a daily basis just like us. We want to use this technology as well to make our lives easier, and therefore we have kind of scoured the internet for the best use cases for you. And this will be action-packed, so we have a lot of prompts that we want to try out here. And if you watch this on the replay, you'll find timestamps down below, so you can skip forward to the use case that might be interested for you. Now, what is ChatGPT all about? It's a language learning model that was developed by OpenAI, and it can do stuff like explain things to you in a natural language kind of setting. We know that this is still just a research preview. It is free to use. I suspect that at some point it will be paid. And nonetheless, it's very powerful already if you just try to make it explain something to you. So if you're completely new to tracking, maybe you'll want to try out a prompt like now my keyboard doesn't connect. That's also the classical case. Let's see. Here we go. What is Google Tag Manager, right? So kind of specific knowledge, but at the same time, might be something that you would be able to look up on YouTube or on YouTube or on Wikipedia. And it writes a prompt for you about Google Tag Manager in fairly good English, and it is kind of correct. Google Tag Manager is a free tool that allows you to quickly and easily add tracking and marketing tags to your website, and gives you a little bit of a paragraph, and you can actually utilize this to have a conversation. So it will remember what is written right here, and you can ask specific questions about this context. What are these tags? And it will understand what you have written or what was written beforehand and the context of the conversation here, and then give you something back. Now, this tool has become a little slower over the time, so we always need to wait a little bit for the answers here. But nonetheless, it is worth the wait. So tags are small pieces of code that are added to your website to perform a specific function. All right, this is something that you might be able to look up on Wikipedia, and this is not what it's for. We can do way more interesting stuff than that. So let's go into a few use cases here that we have written down and we have brainstormed. So first of all, for example, we as people who implement tracking for our clients or need to explain oftentimes certain things, maybe we don't know the answer. Now, you could research the answer, obviously, and type it into something like Google, but you could also just ask ChatGPT. So a common question that I get, my clients ask me why their Google Analytics shows less users than their Shopify backend. What should I answer? And let's see what ChatGPT gives us back here. I think that this has the potential in some cases to replace search as a whole. So Google might not give you that straightforward as an answer than ChatGPT gives it to us here. There could be a number of reasons, which is true. It depends always, as we say in tracking. There are different time periods that you might have looked at, different definitions of a user. So Google Analytics and Shopify may have a different definition of that. You might have filters attached to this. You might have tracking issues that are in the tracking code itself. And that is an answer that I would probably, I could almost copy paste and put it into a client conversation. Obviously, there's some specialized knowledge, and depending if the client really has a concern, we should check that. But oftentimes, these concerns from clients are not really founded in any kind of really tracking issue, but more of a lack of understanding of how it goes. And so you might be able to answer something back. So that's kind of an explanation kind of thing. You would be able to copy that out maybe from another blog post or so. And these are questions that you could ask. What is a cookie? Or what is the difference between a first-party cookie and a third-party cookie, and so on, and you get these answers back, which is really, really great. We also have the ability to look at steps. So if you don't know, us personally, how to do things, like install Google Tag Manager, then we could just ask, like, what are the steps to install Google Tag Manager on a website? And then we don't have to necessarily go into a whole documentation and look into the help section of Google Analytics or Google Tag Manager in order to find this out. And after a little bit of thinking, it should give us a bullet point list. Number 1, number 2, number 3. All of that is something that you should probably know or might have picked up from our videos as well. Might not quite replace our videos just yet, but I think it does a pretty good job in order to understand it really easily and get a very straightforward answer. The quality of the answer sometimes depends on the detailed knowledge. A lot of these things are kind of, it depends on the data set that it has, and this is only till 2021, so it doesn't have any latest knowledge in the language model, and that it was not trained on. But we are able to already get pretty easy steps when it comes to this. Now, when you think about working with other people in your company, in your agency maybe, then there is something called a standard operating procedure, something that you just want to have the steps to, so you can give it over to an intern, to somebody that you train up to make your company really more robust. These are the processes that you use in your company. So you could take this steps that you have here, which are a little bit more nuanced, I would say, and ask ChatGPT to write me an SOP out of that. And then it will try to take this this text that it wrote and put it into an SOP format, which we, in my business at least, we rely heavily on SOPs, so everybody knows what to do at what time. And if anything ever goes wrong, we are able to go in and get somebody else to do it as well. So here's a little bit more condensed version, a standard operating procedure for Google, how to install Google Tag Manager and what to do on this site. So this is really great, a great starting point, I think, for writing these kind of SOPs already. And you would be able to, it goes even beyond now to create a tag and then click the publish button and so on. Obviously, some of the steps I would probably do differently than testing first and trying to QA the whole implementation before I press publish. But it's a great starting point. If you don't know what SOPs are, or if you don't have any in your business, then you might want to start creating something like this. Going to the next case, if you are a freelancer, then you might know that you sometimes need to reply and write proposals for clients or apply to a job. And I'll be honest, I got my start on Upwork, which is a freelance platform. Back then it was called Odesk. And there I applied to many different little tracking jobs in order to get experience in the field of tracking and build my freelance career. So I would go over to something like Upwork here and search for a job that I would like to find, for example, about e-commerce tracking or so, or Google Analytics, and we get like these little job posts that people have written, and we could choose one. Let me see, where's a good one? Did I already click on this one? Yeah. Let's just copy this one. Go to ChatGPT. Oops, this one. And say, write me a proposal for this, or application for this job. Okay, and then I'm going to paste this in. And let's see what it comes back with. I mean, this is a pretty short post here. So we need analytics tracking. We need all values and triggers, like the example I'm going to show you in the video below. It's the same. So okay, then obviously the AI cannot read videos, so maybe that's not a good example. Let's go with yeah. It's a bit tricky to find one that the AI actually kind of understands. This was the same one. Tracking audit. Maybe this one. So we already have something back. Dear employer, I'm writing to apply for the position of e-commerce tracking specialist. Well, it's not really an application to a job post. I have extensive experience working in Google Analytics and have strong understanding on how to set up and configure e-commerce tracking. So it makes it relevant to whatever the user has asked up there, right? In addition to my technical skills, I'm highly organized. Let me try this again and a little bit. Write a proposal for this job post. I'm going to put this in and let's see what it will get for us here. And unfortunately, it got a little bit slower over the last few days, as this was one of the apps that reached 1 million users within 5 days, which is unheard of. Even Netflix and Facebook and so on were not that fast. So we'll see how well they actually scale and can keep this up. All right, request timed out. This is always great. For this Upwork job post. It didn't copy in. Let me go back. Okay. Okay, let us. Okay. Now it's pretty fast. I'm writing to express my interest. I have strong background in marketing, Google Tag Manager, Google Analytics, LinkedIn advertising, and as a marketing automation consulting company, the accurate tracking of equity forms and e-commerce purchases is crucial for the success of business. I believe my skills and so on. A little bit tacky maybe, but you can change the terms around. And it's interesting that it picks up like kind of the context, it understands the context what the client wants here and puts that into the proposal as well. So that might make your life easier. Now let's go into some crucial examples that you actually utilize in tracking. And the first thing that you would probably do is actually implement tracking onto your website. And our favorite tool of doing so is Google Tag Manager. So let's go ahead and use Google Tag Manager to implement some tracking. I'm going to go into a demo shop here, one of our demo pages, and obviously we have tags, triggers, and so on. So where would you be able to utilize ChatGPT? I have a little example here from from somebody on LinkedIn, Björn Thompson, who had this great example of just letting the AI write a piece of code. So you can say, write a custom HTML for Google Tag Manager to track an exit intent on my website. Custom HTML tag I would add here. And let's see if the AI can come up with the right HTML. Or actually, it's JavaScript that needs to be implemented into the browser. And this is usually a listener that needs to be written. And all right, it doesn't. Okay, let me reword that. Write me a custom JavaScript for Google Tag Manager to track an exit intent on my website. Piece of JavaScript, piece of code. Let's see if it brings me back. The problem is a little bit when you test these things out, and I tested these before, you get some amazing results, but you cannot always reproduce them because the AI thinks for itself. So it might change the answers next time you ask it as well. So here's a little bit of JavaScript. And it actually writes a listener functionality for us. And that listener is a mouse over. I guess when the user exits the window, it will then push an event into the data layer. And that's important. Like the data layer push is something that you wouldn't normally do in just plain JavaScript, but for Google Tag Manager, you would actually do it. So here gives us also a little bit of explanation of what this code will do and where we need to put it in. We need to put it in a custom HTML tag type in order for it to work. Now, I don't think we should. I don't have time to actually try it out. If this code, or should we actually try it out? Let me see. So I'm gonna go ahead and do a custom HTML tag. What it didn't tell me is to put script tags around it. So that is necessary. And then we have here an exit intent custom HTML. Now you also need to do know how to build the triggers and so on. I'm just going to put this on all pages right now. And let me get my okay. Need to get my code and then also go to our demo shop in order to actually implement this. And then it should push something to the data layer. Where is our tag actually? It is actually a listener tag that we have just built. It will not do the whole tag deployment for us because we would need to build a tag based on it and build a trigger around it. But I'm going to implement this right here. And what we need to do is also go into the preview mode. Okay, and we have a problem. Yeah, so it doesn't quite understand. Oh no, this one is a completely different custom HTML. Let's delete that one. I thought there was a coding error in the Okay, so we go into the preview mode, and let me go into our demo shop right here. And we are connected. And we should have another... What is the actual event that it will deploy? There's a lot of things going on right now, so data layer push exit intent. So I'm going to try to exit this page. Let's see if we get actually the event. Consent rollup. No, it doesn't seem like it's actually being deployed. So we have the exit intent, but it's not deploying. So it can help you to create some of the code, but sometimes it just fails in terms of how it executes, and you need to adjust your code a bit. So I'm not seeing any kind of exit intent. Unfortunately, we have a lot of timer events and so on. Should have tested this in a container that actually is without any other. Hopefully, there's not conflicting JavaScript. But anyways, I want to go on. This is a JavaScript that definitely will a little bit of work. It gives you the right ideas, and maybe you need to adjust it a little bit. From what I see here, I don't see any kind of obvious thing why it's not working. Maybe I'm trying it out wrong. No, I don't see any kind of event here. Something to investigate, but apparently ChatGPT also understands that context, and that's very, very interesting. Next up, you probably want to build a custom JavaScript variable at some point, and as ChatGPT can write code, we can utilize ChatGPT as well to create a custom JavaScript variable. So what do you need to add in here? Well, one of the things that you might go to a blog for in order to copy it out is a prompt like this one. Let me just copy that and put that into ChatGPT as well. Write a custom JavaScript variable for Google Tag Manager, so a specific context that redacts an email address from a URL. So what if an email address is found in a URL? It could be sent over to Google Analytics, which would be PII, and therefore you are violating the terms of service, and you can build a custom JavaScript variable that turns your URL and redacts the email address within it. And it writes me a custom JavaScript variable, and this is within an anonymous function, which you need for these kind of variables. And it then pulls in the URL, which it doesn't really need to do because, well, yeah, it needs to do that, but it already uses the 2 curly brackets, which is also Google Tag Manager specific. So let's copy the code here, and yeah, we can try it out. Let's try this out. Paste, and this is our URL redacted email variable. This is, oops, stay here. This is custom.js. Save this and go to preview. URL found in another variable, unknown. What is the... it would need to be page URL. So yes, that is something that ChatGPT didn't understand. So that we will change. Is that correct? Page URL? Should be. Okay, so now we don't have obviously a variable in here, but I'm going to just write email equals test@test.com, and let's see if this now gets out of our variable. We have a custom JS variable. Oh no, it must be up here. Redacted email. So here we see the email has been redacted correctly from the URL. that's something you could already use in order to build it up. All right, I have a message that the sound is not good. All right, let me see what happened to my sound. Test, test, test. All right. Let me see. Can you guys hear me? Test, test, test. 1, 2, 3. Normally, yeah, it looks like it should be working. Is it much better now, or is it still distorted? Maybe I just put it up a little bit. Okay, you guys can hear me. Then let's continue with our little examples here. And this is just a custom JavaScript variable. And let's go ahead and do a little bit more of coding, because ChatGPT is actually quite good at coding. And I was thinking of what can we actually do with all these coding examples. We do a little bit of coding inside of Google Tag Manager, and this is writing data layers. So if you ever have created a custom JavaScript data layer, then you need to know how to write these data layers correctly in order to make it work. So what I'm going to do here is I have a prompt that is just write me a Google Analytics data layer for transactions. And let's see if if ChatGPT actually understands this. All right. People still have problems with the sound. Apparently the sound is just something that is a problem on YouTube, unfortunately. So hopefully we'll get that fixed and see what we can do. So it writes me a data layer here. And the interesting part is that it is a transaction data. It is transaction data, but it's not a data layer. This is write me a Google Analytics data layer for transactions. This is super interesting that it doesn't really do what I expected it to do, as it gives me information about SKU. This result was definitely different the other day. So let me see if I can rewrite this and say write me a data layer, a Google Tag Manager data layer for Google Analytics transactions. Maybe that makes it a little bit clearer of what we are after here. And after a while, yeah, sorry guys for the problems with the audio. It seemed to be working at the beginning, and now it's not anymore. Very weird. I have everything set up on my side. Maybe I have to change the mic. Did this start happening just now, or what was it? All right, my request timed out. And this is kind of something that's unfortunate with ChatGPT. Let me try this again and see. All right, let me just unplug my whole little system here and see if it works again. Test, test, test. let's see. The common wisdom is to now just shut it off and on again, which we can't do in a live stream as we have the problem of it being live. Now, a little bit of data layer. Now, this time it gave me a data layer. The interesting part here, the data layer seems to be a Google Analytics data layer, but it's an old data layer. It's from Google Analytics and not Google Analytics 4. So I could ask it, can you give me one for Google Analytics 4? And maybe it'll do that. All right, still crackling. Yeah, I don't really know what it could be. Maybe there's some malfunction in the microphone itself, which we wouldn't be able to fix just yet. Let me try another microphone that I have laying around here while we are waiting for ChatGPT to answer all our burning questions. And this is totally improvising right now. Let's see. Test, test, test. Test, test, test. Okay, this is now a different microphone. And I wonder if you could hear me better now. I already unplugged the whole audio system, so that should... ChatGPT is making the mic crackle. Maybe it doesn't want it to reveal all the secrets. All right. Okay, so maybe something is wrong with my mic, and that would be unfortunate because it's a pretty expensive thing. Okay, and let me get rid of this one. Unfortunately, I don't have a stand here, so I won't be able to. Yeah, my stand is in occupation over there. All right, let's just go through this further if this is better. So we have a data layer now built up, and this is an e-commerce data layer. It gives me now a GA4 transaction data layer, but this is still not a real Google Analytics 4 data layer, although it says here, hey, this is a Google Analytics 4 data layer. We don't really have the Google Analytics 4 values in here because I see action field and purchase, which is not Google Analytics conform, and it would not go through as a Google Analytics 4 data layer. The interesting part is, though, if it gets it right, and you need to imagine that this data set only exists till 2021, so maybe it gets a little bit of the context wrong, as there were not so many things about Google Analytics 4 yet on the internet. But anyways, let's go ahead, and what we can do now is to create also here from this a little... we can change this data layer around. Again, it understands the context of the data layer of what was written before, and what I can do now is to create and add a key of version, for example, and the value 1 to all of the products. So it would need to add it here and here in order for it to work correctly. So now it will think about this, and then we can go on as well. And while we're thinking, let me think about how I can microphone. Oh, this takes a little bit of time, but hopefully we'll be up there in a second. So here you can see now it's writing the data layer, and let's see if it adds the key to the products array. So we have the products, and there were 2 products there. And here we go. We have the version 1 that has been added, product version. And it's also added it to the second product. So you can feasibly explain how you want to have the data layer changed and what products you want to have in the sound in there. So you would be able to utilize this as well. Okay. Then let's go on and talk about CSS selectors. So CSS selectors are these things and triggers when you create a new tag, for example, a DOM element. No, a DOM. Let's go over here. Let's say a just links trigger, or if you utilize element visibility, you have the selection method of ID and CSS selector. So how do you write these CSS selectors? And sometimes it's a little bit more tricky than what it's made out to be. So for example, here on measureschool.com, if we wanted to look at the data of our elements right here and look into the basically the whole HTML, we can go and copy the whole HTML and put it into ChatGPT and say, let me see. Oh, I can copy this out from my doc here. Write me a CSS selector for the first button that you see on the page, right? And it then can write me a CSS selector. If you don't know anything about CSS, if you can describe it at least, then ChatGPT will be able to give you something back. You could also then paste in, and this is what I didn't do because I needed to paste 2 times, the whole HTML and say like, I want this specific kind of part of the site, and it understands the context and can search for this kind of part and give it back to you. So here it will write me a CSS selector of button first of type. It will also give me a little bit of explanation what these classes and what this actually means. So this selector will first button that appears on the page. If you only want a selected button within a specific element or container, you can be more specific, and it gives you this. And then you can also, it will write you about, like, if you want a third button, for example. So you can use nth type and so on. So this is really interesting because you will be able to utilize something like this, copy it over if it's really the first button that you wanted to track, and put it into the element visibility here, and then this should also work. Right. So element CSS selectors, also something that you might want to try out. All right. Then what else do we have? I came up with this little thing of you might be familiar with content groups, and Measure School, for example, has a lot of URLs. So what we can do is go into the sitemap. Okay, I'm typing with one hand now. So we have here our sitemap for, let's say, our pages. And then we have all the different URLs. So I can take these URLs, copy them, and let's put them into a sheet. So if you don't know, sheet.new will open up a new Google spreadsheet. Then we'll paste them in here, and we'll only take the URLs. Whoops. We'll only take the URLs, and then let's paste them into ChatGPT. So what I want to do is to cluster them into different clusters so I can build content groups out of it. So we gave it a lot of URLs, a lot of white space though as well. So here are the URLs, and we ask it to cluster these. So let's see what it brings back. And the cool thing about this then is that you could use a lookup table in Google Tag Manager to build out these content groups and make a variable that would hold or filter out these different content groups. And it's now analyzing the data and then hopefully gives us something back that is clustered into content groups that we could use for Google Tag Manager, for Google Analytics. Yeah, these tag demos, especially with a live API don't quite go. Let me see what everybody says on the chat. Yep, regex, quite cool. CSS selectors, and then also the request timeout. So that is something we can do. Let me just scroll back up here and copy my original request. So we have our URLs. Let's copy them. Put the whole request in here. And cluster these URLs into content groups. Let me just also copy this, otherwise maybe it will not work. And it will then take, normally what it should do is takes all of the URLs, looks at it and says like, oh, we could cluster this and this way, and we can build a content group. Too many twists. Please slow down. Okay. Let me reload this and see if this works. Just want to make this work. Show everybody what you can do. I mean, there's other funny use cases around ChatGPT, but I will leave that up to other YouTubers on how you can make them work. There's lots of other content around what programmers think of this, what other marketers think of the use case for SEO, for example. But for tracking, we wanted to make a little bit of a unique thing, and that is what we came up with. So hopefully this is useful. And it's just loading. Here we go. So here are some potential content groups for these URLs. So we could have the homepage, we could have the product pages, and it gives me actually now everything that I should cluster under a product page. Unfortunately, it's not as fast as we would like it to be. Maybe they've made it a little bit slower so people don't abuse it too much. Then we have the product pages, we have blog, we have services, and Measure School also has. So this is really cool for a content group. Now, how would you put that into Google Tag Manager actually in order to make that work? So normally you would have a content group inside of Google Analytics tag, right? So, but what I think is the easiest way is if you have all of these URLs, you can build a variable here. And this variable should be a lookup table variable, and we can actually utilize a regex table for this one, where the URL goes into this. So this would be page URL. This would be, where is it? Page URL. And then I need to have a regex pattern, and the output should be for example, services or blog or so, right? But what are the regular expressions here again? So it makes me quizzes and tests, free resources, courses, and so on. So it gives me quite a few different content groups, 10, and that is great. So I will ask it, what are the regular expressions I need to use to categorize the URLs into these groups? So this is a follow-up question again to what we have come up with here. And this should give us the right regular expressions because, for example, this URL, I want to put it into my product scope group, product pages. And now it gives me, for the homepage, you should use this one. For the product pages, you should use this one. For blog pages, you use this one, and then so on. So these are all the different regex that I would need to put into my little pattern regex table right here. Isn't that amazing? I mean, it's feasibly something that you can come up with yourself if you know regular expressions and if you know how to do this, then definitely. But I would say this is a Great little help that we could utilize. All right. Then I was also amazed by one of the things. Sometimes you are looking at requests or at websites and say, what can I actually track here, right? And maybe make it even more context specific. So in my case, it was what would I need to put up on the script section inside of a Shopify store in order to make conversion tracking work with Google Analytics. And this was not just about Google Analytics. It was actually a specific knowledge about Shopify, about a setting inside of Shopify, and what do I need to put into this setting in order to get my right conversion tracking working. Because as you might know, Shopify has their own conversion tracking, and you don't really need to utilize the script section here. But it gives me anyways an example of a script that I could put into the thank you page script section of Shopify in order to make Google Analytics tracking work for. So it gives me the G tag here, and yeah, this is the standard code that we all know of. Oh no, this is actually analytics.js. So this is actually universal analytics, and it says I should send over a page view, which, yeah, it's kind of interesting. So here it gives me the actual event tracking code that I would need to use in order to send over the event of e-commerce and purchase and so on. It doesn't really tell me, hey, how to track transactions with the e-commerce tracking, but I'll take it as it understands specifically what we need in the context of the script section of Shopify. So it's pretty cool in order to get some input on maybe how to do it. Maybe you don't have to go through loads and loads of our tutorials in order to find that out. So that's interesting. Unfortunately, this is all still universal analytics. It doesn't quite understand GA4 just yet. I presume that will change unless when they update kind of or make it train on the newer data set. Again, it doesn't really understand any kind of new things around around current trends and so on. All right. Let's move on. And if you have implemented tracking, then you have now data inside of your systems. And yeah, we can look at reports here and take a look, let's say, at the acquisitions report. So, oh no, let's go to the traffic acquisition report. And here we have a lot of data that I don't want to read. I'm just going to copy it and go into ChatGPT and ask it to analyze it for me. Okay, that didn't work to copy. So this is just a raw format of everything that I've just copied. Let's see if it actually understands it, because sometimes it has a little bit harder time to understand that these are actually, well, I forgot to actually, let's see. Okay, it didn't know what the data actually means. Yeah, it doesn't clear what it represents. So it has a hard time understanding the data. Normally what I would do, and unfortunately I cannot do this with this report here. Well, let's go into the Measure School channel here. And before we reveal all our secrets, let's go back a while into July and look at this date range here. And then go into acquisition and traffic acquisition. So what I would normally do is to actually export this data and You can download a file. Oh, it's a PDF. Download a CSV. This is obviously something that you won't be able to see right away. I'm just going to copy the CSV here and put it into our ChatGPT and ask it to analyze it. So if you have no idea of what this actually means and how to analyze it, it's like, okay, I could put it into ChatGPT and see what it comes up with, which is kind of amazing because, yeah, it needs to understand the context. It needs to know what it's going through. And maybe it even understands, oh, this comes from Google Analytics. So maybe we are in luck here as of the insights. Okay, this data appears to be exporting from Google Analytics. That's correct. Measureschool.com for the specific time period, July 1st to July 22nd, which is correct. The report contains different channels of traffic, yeah, as well as data on users. The first part of the data contains daily counts of traffic, different channels, specific time periods. It would have to be more context information about this. Okay. So it gives you a little bit of what the report is all about. You could ask like, about the data that you have pasted in. So it is context specific and can look into this as well. All right. Takes a little while, unfortunately. It doesn't want to do it. Well, it does actually. Okay. It doesn't want to do it. I want to move on to a little bit of clustering again. So one of the reports that I find fascinating is when we go into the explore section here, and I have a report that we have already looked at, which are our search terms. So here we have all the search terms that users have been using when they go to measureschool.com and put anything into our internal search, right? And this is a lot of data, but maybe we have the opportunity to actually cluster it somehow. And again, we can utilize this data to, or ChatGPT to cluster all of this data together and let us know what are people actually looking for. How could we cluster this? So let's copy this and put this into ChatGPT. And it's quite interesting. So people also, whatever is this, add payment, about, to get insights. And these are valuable things for us to think about, like how could we create new content, in which areas should we create new content, what is maybe something that we should pay more attention to, and unfortunately cannot go out and find us things or go to the pages. Perfect. And let's go ahead and copy this one. And I'm going to reload. And let's see. What does the magic of... Okay, people say that my mic is a bit clipping, so I'll turn it down. I am on a new mic because my other mic failed, so hopefully this is better. And here we go. So it clustered these search terms for me and says, well, the first topic is Google Analytics 4 and Google Tag Manager. The second topic is e-commerce tracking and online tracking. These are the search results that it would cluster under these. Although I would say like conversion API, cross some data layer is really a Google Tag Manager topic. So it doesn't do the most amazing job, but it gives me ideas, and that's all I want. Form submission tracking and consent, which is like totally unrelated actually. Other tracking and analytics topics, okay. UTMs, YouTube tracking, first party, conversion leads. Google Data Studio is not really completely unrelated. Okay. Marketo, video editor, and so on. So it would be interesting to then run this against something like which one do you think has the highest search volume or so. But yeah, it clusters this, and this is something you could do right now inside of your GA4 yourself as well. So really another little great use case, grouping keywords together, classifying. I think take all your URLs and let it look into the data, and maybe you could even, I haven't tried this out, saying, hey, I want to find the pages that have a very high engagement time, but very low traffic, right? So you could push them up, or very low engagement time and very high traffic. So you could look at these pages in order to make sure that they don't contain spam or take them offline or so, right? So that's something that would be interesting. All right, last use case that I want to get to is obviously BigQuery. And BigQuery is notoriously hard for people to learn, although, if you haven't heard yet, you should learn SQL in order to get BigQuery running. And it's a great power, especially inside of GA4 when you could do the BigQuery export. Now, writing these SQL queries takes a little bit of practice and you need to know the language. But there is actually a clear pattern to it that if you could take your normal language and describe what data you want to see, it will give you something back. So, for example, you could have um, a query just like this and ask it to put this in count unique users in BigQuery. So we have BigQuery specific context from 2021 March to July 30th. We actually need to change this around to January. Because the data set that I'm working with here is the Google Analytics demo data set, which only has data from, I believe, 2020 to July to January 2021. So it's specific on that, and it will write me here to count the number of unique users in BigQuery from 2021 to you can use the following SQL query. And here it gives me the SQL query, although it seems to not be, this is actually, is this the timestamp column? No, there's an event timestamp. Let me ask for Google Analytics specific one. Let's see if it can give me something specific to Google Analytics 4. And this is obviously something where you kind of need to know what you're doing. You kind of need to know how the data is actually built. But if you can describe it well enough, and if you kind of know what you're doing, it will help you to write a data set here. And this looks better. Let's actually try it out. I'm going to copy the code and put it in a new query here. Ah, now I didn't copy it correctly. Doesn't want to do it. Here we go. And when I looked at the data set before, there is no user ID, so you need to kind of look at what is actually available inside of the data set. And then here you actually also need to know, if you query your data, you need to know that this is something that you will need to have for your data set. And here there needs to be a star as well. So let's see if it will give me something back here. And voila, these are the unique users that were on the website based on the SQL BigQuery query that we have ran here. Now, you obviously you saw that I changed some stuff around, and this wouldn't have worked on the first try because you need to know about the datasets. You actually need to know how to get into Google BigQuery in the first place and what it actually represents and so on. So there's a little bit of knowledge that you would need, but people who have Google BigQuery experience, they say is quite a helpful tool to get an idea of like what you could do and ask a question if you don't quite know yet. Oh, how would I structure such a query? You can give it ideas and say, I want to actually see this and this data, and it will put something out for you. This might not be always perfect, but it gets you started on your path to using BigQuery. All right, the last, this is actually, I wanted to say that this is the last, but no. The other thing that I found amazing, is that when I looked into, we had survey results, and you can see here, these are the survey results from Measure Summit, attendee survey results from Measure Summit 2022. And we asked people like, what do you focus primarily on, strategy, implementation, or both, and so on. And we got quite a few, I would say 600 people who answered us here. So I'm going to copy these and actually ask it to summarize the results for me as well. All right, this didn't work because I couldn't paste the data in. Okay, here we go. Let's see if that actually worked. And see what it brings me back. And yeah, this would, I mean, Google Forms now has a functionality where you can kind of see these results in a little bit more chart form and so on. So this might be something that you might use. But again, for just getting a quick little introduction into this, of course. All right. Let's try to, I really need to copy these next time. Get an idea and to go through something fast, it's always nice to have ChatGPT on your hands. So here we go. Based on the survey responses, the majority of respondents are from the United States and are team members at agencies, with a primary focus on both strategy and implementation. Most respondents consider their digital measurement skills to be intermediate and use either iPhones or Android phones on mobile. Well, that is interesting. The majority of users Windows or Linux or desktop and learn about technology. So it's really a little summary of like what people have answered here. And I could also ask it to give me a bullet point list. And make it a little bit shorter so that it's really condensed and really something that is in there. Now, one other thing, and this is really the last thing that I wanted to show you today, is how can you actually gather data as well, not only through Google Tag Manager, but also through a actual survey. So in order to come up with such a survey, we sat down and actually had a brainstorming session, and these kind of questions developed over time because our sponsors wanted to also know them and so on. Okay, it didn't give me the bullet points, requested timed out again. But what we could actually do, and you see it here, we experience exponentially high demand. But let's say you wanted to create a survey for quick feedback, or your boss tells you, hey, create a survey, create a 5-minute feedback survey after a user buys in my online store, right? And you really just, what are good questions to actually ask, or what would give you good insights? And that's what I asked the AI, and here are 5 potential 5-minute feedback surveys. How satisfied are you with your overall shopping experience in our website? Did you find everything you were looking for during your visit on your website? What was the placing of the order, making payment easy and straightforward? Did you receive your order in a timely manner? Isn't that incredible in terms of, well, this is something you could take and put right into Google Forms in order to create a little survey that you would give your users via email. So really cool ideas in order to get your tracking done, get more data, get more accurate data, make your life easier as a tracking implementer, and overall an interesting kind of development in our work, I would say, than just having new features in Google Analytics and not knowing maybe how to use them. All right, this is it with our little live stream for today. I hope you enjoyed and were able to follow along and know now a little bit about the capabilities of Google, of ChatGPT, and how you can use it in your work itself. I hope this was kind of interesting, entertaining, although the AI sometimes is a little bit slow to respond, and we need to wait for the answers. Sorry again for the trouble on the microphone and also the audio, but next time we'll try to get the tech working again. If you want to find out more about Google Tag Manager, click this video right over here, and we also have Google Analytics content coming out right now, so click on this playlist over here. Now, my name is Julian. Till next time.